Hello, welcome to activity 3 of the community session for the meetups. So hopefully you've had a chance of doing activities 1 and activities 2. So you've started a OneNote, you've thought about your values, what do we care about? You've thought about your behaviours, what are our norms, what are our ways of behaving with each other? And now we might want to think about 2 things. One is to think about what do we consider as success? What does it look like if we're working well? What does that actually look like in this environment? And putting it all together in one big kind of charter, the way we work. And again, as I've said in the first introductory video, good teams are explicit about these things, because then you know when you're going off track, you know when things aren't working, and you can rectify it quickly rather than it all fall into a big pit of rubbish. And no one turns up and it all goes horribly wrong. This is what this is the way that good teams work. So we're trying to encourage that. Where am I going? There. Okay. So the third activity, make me small, please. Thank you. The third activity is to try and think about, well, what would success look like? And there's different ways of thinking about success, and we'd like you to think about what that looks like in your team. We can give some ideas, but it's entirely up to you. And what we want to do is put those things together in a team charter. Again, we're going to do this in OneNote, so I'm not going to go through that now. So the last 2 activities showed you different ways of doing that. What I'd like you to do is add a third section to your OneNote with about success, and then that is your charter. You've got your values, your norms, and your criteria for success. So you'll have your charter. So the first activity, we've done some working apart together. Why not have a bit of a discussion? What does it mean to be successful in a team? What does that look like? Is it just like everybody turns up? Is that success? Or is it actually people want to do other things in the team? Is that a success? They want to be out, work outside it? Is it that everybody's happy? Is it that people feel they're learning something? Is it they're feeling challenged? Is it feeling useful? What are the criteria of success within the team that you're working in? And that may vary depending on the tasks or activities you're doing. Is it to achieve those activities? Is it just to not annoy people? You get the idea. Discuss what success looks like to you. And then choose a few key indicators. What are the best ways? What are the key indicators of success? So you could kind of concretely say, you know, this is not being successful. We're not working according to what we think is a good, successful team. So try and think about that. Try and, as we've done the last one, put these in concise statements in your document, in this OneNote document that you're working on. So what are these concise statements of success? And then draw all of those activities into this charter in OneNote with values, behaviours and indicators of success. So what we care about, how we're going to work together, and what shows us we're successful. Or values, norms and outcomes, however you want to call it, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're going to do in this activity. Be broad. Try and spend a lot of time thinking, well, what are all the different ways, and then you can hone it down to the particular ones that you think are important. Think of these all these activities in concrete ways that you can tell. So how would you know? And so if it is that everybody's kind of feeling okay, then you need to make sure that in check-ins you check that, or in a checkout you check that, so that you're kind of concretely doing and following the things that you think are important. So don't just have it as a sort of vacuous statement that never gets talked about. Say, okay, what we're going to do we think it's really important that everybody seems to be okay and everybody's still on board, and we'll do that at the end of each of our meetings. Say, is this still working? Is this, people still feel this is a worthwhile activity? Whatever it is, you get the idea. But don't try and get all bogged down. This is not, a court of rules. Be playful. It's your team. If success looks like an odd little way of doing things, then go for it. It's your rules. You can make them up. And remember, all rules are made up by people. So don't try and think of this necessarily as something that becomes arduous and, okay, we need to do it in this way. It's your team. What do you think it would look like to be the best, most successful meetup group team on your course in the world ever? So just think about that. Think about, we can be playful as you like. but also be respectful of what other people want to do. So just try and spend that time coming up with some ideas, and then think about, it doesn't have to just try and be, you don't want cliched statements. Make them meaningful, that you want to own them in your team. Yeah, this is what success looks like to us, and we've all bought into this, and that's what's going in our charter. And that's what we're going to stick to, and that's what we're going to come back and revisit. So, you could even choose a team name, some variations if you want to. Why not take your charter and send it to your program team and say, yeah, this is our charter for our team, and this is how we're working. They can then draw those different things and say, these are the rules that these different teams have worked out, and that might be great for them to think about with all the program stuff that's coming up after Block 0. You might want to think about, what are you going to do? What are the consequences if they don't follow the charter, if you don't follow those expectations, if it starts all going wrong in terms of your outcomes of success? What are you then going to do? So maybe even think about some things to do. How do you deal with conflict and challenges within your community? And you might have said in your values, we want to embrace diversity and we want to embrace new ways of thinking. How do we deal with those kind of conflicts, or if people don't necessarily engage in those things in those ways? Or we want to keep people on time, or we want to make sure that everybody's having fun, and if they're not all having fun, or they're not all on time, or they're not turning up, what do you do? How do you deal with that? And try and think of that in a positive way. How do we actively encourage it and move us back on track, rather than think about punishing? So try and think about this how can we actively engage people into this team? How do we want to make people want to be part of this team and this meetup? So that's an alternative way to think about it, a little variation for you to think about there. Really important with any of these charters, what's known as keep it written in pencil. In other words, I'm a big fan of pencils. I like pencils. I like things written in pencil because they can always be rubbed out. They're not there forever. We've made it up. It didn't exist before, and now we've made it up. So don't, just because we've written it down doesn't necessarily make it written in stone that we can never be changed. Okay, so be open for change. If in one meetup you say, you know what, that rule we said, this is not working. Let's scrap it. Let's go back into that one note, cross it out, delete it. Or you say, actually, this has become more important as we go through. This is more important. Let's put it in there. So refine them as necessary. And you might revisit it in future sessions. And if you use this group beyond the meetup session, you might want to say, actually, this task, success would mean this in this activity. And so let's use that as a criteria for success now, because we've got an assessment to do. And what we want to do is really make sure that we get it done by this date. Then there's a new criteria of success. That becomes a focus. And then there's these expectations. And you might have, okay, you're going to have different roles in this activity. So let's revisit this. So don't just have this charter that just gets dusty, like a book on my shelf that's behind me here. Let's try and think about it as something that's active and looked at and used and helps you think about the team and working together as a team. And we know that organisations that have successful teams do that. These become the purpose, the meaning, the values. They're the things, they're the bosses to people. They're the things that drive what you should and shouldn't be doing. So revisit it, refine it as necessary, keep it written in pencil, be open to change. Bring it back up at other meetings if you want to discuss it. If it's not been used for ages, bring it back up and say, is this worth it? We want to rip it up. We want to start again. So always be open. Just because it's been written down doesn't mean that's always the way it should be. So good luck with getting your charter together and thinking about what success looks like. Hope you have some good learning. Revisit it. Have fun. It's your team, your rules. Embrace it. And I hope it all goes well for you.